Imagine this. You're betrayed, shoved into freezing water, limbs numb, lungs screaming, darkness swallowing you whole. And just when you think it can't get worse, it does. Two glowing eyes slice through the void, a colossal crocodile monster. No strength, no escape, no mercy. Ding! A voice echoes in your skull. A shockwave rips through your body. Fire ignites in your veins. Awakened bloodline, water monkey. In a heartbeat, the water is no longer your enemy. It's your weapon. And then it hits you. Water manipulation isn't your only gift. Blood domination. You can make contracts with aquatic spirit beasts, control them, evolve them. So why stop at just one? Monster crocodiles? Yours. Giant catfish that could swallow a boat? Yours. An entire legion of underwater nightmares? Guess what? Now they bow to you. It all began on the edge of a quiet lake. Liang stood there, utterly transfixed by the golden hues of dawn stretching across the sky. The crisp morning air filled his lungs, and for the first time in forever, everything felt right. Then, of course, his father's voice cut through the peace like a blade. Liang! It felt like a sound from a lifetime ago, something distant yet familiar, like a song half-remembered. Without thinking, he rushed toward it, unwilling to waste a second. He wouldn't lose this moment. Not today. The morning was spent on the lake, checking the fish they had caught. It was normal. Stupidly, painfully normal. But somehow that made it perfect. He laughed like an idiot when a crab latched onto his foot. His father nearly choked on their meal from laughing too hard. They even carved nonsense into the side of the boat, just because. It was simple, but it was enough. Too bad reality was an absolute bastard. He didn't notice how fast time had slipped by until the sun dipped below the horizon. Before heading back, they sat by the shore to soak in the last light of the day. That's when Liang saw it, a red carp gliding through the water, its scales catching the dying sunlight like a jewel. Rare, beautiful, probably important. So, naturally, his dumb ass dived in after it, and that's when everything fell apart. The moment he hit the water, the fish was gone. So was the rest of the world. The lake, once brimming with life, became a silent abyss. He thrashed, struggled, but something held him in place. His chest tightened, his limbs grew heavier. The only thought in his mind was, "Father, pull me out." But no hand reached for him. The world faded, and then he woke up. Not in his father's arms, not on the shore, no golden sunrise, no warm voice calling his name. Instead, two unfamiliar figures loomed over him, their eyes filled with cold amusement. Reality crashed down like a collapsing mountain. The day with his father. A dream? The truth? He was tied up, captured like a goddamn pig for slaughter. Zhang, that treacherous son of a bitch, had played him, pretending to need his guidance when, in reality, he was just bait for the water monster lurking beneath them. A cruel fate, sure, but Liang didn't panic. Because this wasn't his first life. No, Liang had been here before. Or rather, somewhere else before. A whole different world. He was a transmigrator, thrown into this place a month ago, stuffed into the body of some poor bastard who had died of illness. His mother, gone at birth. His father, his only family, taken by disease just 3 months ago. And now, all those emotions, the loneliness, the grief, the longing were his. Truly his. For the first time in both his lives, he understood what it meant to lose something real. Still, existential crises would have to wait, because this world was insane. People here trained their bodies and minds to surpass human limits. The strongest were called cultivators, but they weren't the only ones who could evolve. Animals could too. And those that did, they became mythical beasts, like the one currently surfacing beneath them. Zhang, ever the arrogant dumbass, had assumed this thing would be small. 1/2 meter, maybe. Manageable. It was not. When the beast finally emerged, the boat lurched violently. The water churned, waves rolling outward like the breath of a waking god. Zhang, a seasoned cultivator, stared in absolute terror. His legs wobbled. It was colossal. Its maw alone could swallow the entire boat. Scales like jagged stone gleamed under the moonlight, eyes deep and endless as the abyss locked onto them. Panic set in, but Zhang wasn't the type to just roll over and die. He had trained for 10 years. He was strong. He was powerful. He was gone. The second he lunged forward, the beast didn't even flinch. It just opened its mouth, and like a pathetic little snack, Zhang was swallowed whole. The boat shattered like a toy in a storm. The old bastard was panicking hard. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. He wasn't supposed to die here. No, that wasn't part of the script. He had plans, damn it. Retirement, a nice farm somewhere, maybe even a cute little apprentice to carry on his legacy. But nope. Monster first, dreams later. So, being the absolute scumbag that he was, he came up with a brilliant plan. One that required zero bravery and one very unfortunate scapegoat. And just like that, Liang's hand had a knife sticking out of it. Before he even had time to process the pain, the old man shoved him straight into the water like a human sacrifice, the blood from his wound blooming out like a big neon sign for the monster that screamed, "Free meal, limited time offer." And to make matters worse, Liang was still tied up. So, naturally, he sank like a rock. Well, this is just fantastic, he thrashed, his instinct screaming. "Don't die, you idiot," while the ropes dug into his skin. The water was cold, the kind that seeps into your bones, numbing everything. But Liang wasn't the type to give up just because death was aggressively looming over his shoulder. So, in an act of pure desperation, he did the only thing he could. He bit the damn ropes. His teeth tore at the fibers, the taste of damp filth coating his tongue. But he kept going because the alternative was drowning and/or getting eaten. It took a few agonizing moments, but finally, the restraints loosened. Great. One problem down. Now for the next one. He was too deep. His lungs burned, his vision blurred. Darkness crept in at the edges, and that's when it happened. The visions. His father's arm stretched out toward him, as if waiting to pull him to safety. Liang knew it wasn't real. He wasn't stupid. He wasn't some naive child clinging to the impossible. And yet, his body moved. He reached out and his fingers brushed against something solid. A log. Not just any log, the log from his father's boat. The one they had carved their faces into. The one filled with the remnants of a life long gone. For a brief moment, warmth flooded him. Gratitude, relief, something dangerously close to comfort. Somehow, even in death, his father had saved him. But of course, life wasn't about to let him enjoy that moment. Oh no. Because that's when the monster caught his scent. Before he could react, sharp teeth clamped onto his leg. Pain. White-hot, searing pain. And just like that, he was dragged downward. The deeper he sank, the more his chest screamed for air. The pressure crushed him, squeezing his ribs like a vice. The last glimmers of light from the surface faded as the beast pulled him into the abyss. And that's when he saw it. The graveyard, corpses, countless half-eaten bodies floating in the dark, their faces frozen in terror. Boats shattered into unrecognizable wreckage. And then, as if the universe just wanted to spit on him one last time. Treasure. Glittering, shining piles of gold and artifacts, like some sick cosmic joke. With the last of his breath, he closed his eyes. "I'm sorry, Father." And just as the world started to go black, the water beast slammed him into the ground. Not to kill him. No, the oversized bastard was toying with him, like a cat playing with a mouse before ripping it apart. Pain shot through his body. But before he could curse the universe one last time, something happened. His blood drifting through the water seeped into the lake bed. It touched something old, ancient, forgotten. A water cauldron buried beneath the wreckage, and deep within it, something stirred. A surge of power, raw, overwhelming, foreign yet familiar. It spread through his veins, changing everything. And suddenly, he wasn't drowning. He wasn't dying. He could breathe. The water was no longer his enemy. It was his domain. The wounds on his leg gone. His body stronger. His very being shifted as if something deep inside him had finally awakened. And then a notification popped up. New skill acquired, water control. Grants the ability to manipulate water currents and breathe underwater. Liang barely had time to process the absurdity of it all before the monster struck again. It lunged, jaws wide, ready to finally end him. But this time, Liang wasn't helpless. With a single thought, the water obeyed. It twisted, surged, coiled like a living force, catching the beast mid-swim and suspending it in place. And oh, the rush, power, raw, intoxicating power. For the first time since he arrived in this cursed world, Liang felt it. No limits. He grinned. Then reality slapped him in the face, because while this power was great, there was just one little problem. He had no idea how to control it. The beast struggled in his grip, thrashing like a fish that refused to be dinner. Then, with a powerful jolt, it broke free. And like any murderous sea abomination with an appetite for human snacks, it lunged at him. But this time, Liang dodged, not in the awkward, flailing, "oh God, I'm about to drown" kind of way, but with effortless grace, like he had been born for the water. Which, technically, he hadn't, but screw the details. Still, dodging wasn't gonna get him anywhere if he didn't have a way to actually kill this thing. He needed a plan. A weapon, something. And as if the universe finally decided to be useful for once, the system chimed in. New skill acquired. Blood domination. Inscribe runes using your own blood to form contracts with aquatic spirit beasts. Liang froze, then blinked, then let out a short, breathless laugh because, oh, this was good. This wasn't just some basic woo I can splash water ability. No, this was some straight-up demon lord nonsense. And Liang, he was here for it. Immediately, a plan formed in his head. It was risky. It was reckless. But hell, what wasn't these days? The beast surged forward again, but this time Liang didn't just dodge. He twisted his fingers, forcing the water itself to lock around the creature, stopping it in its tracks for just a second, long enough to carve the runes. Using his own blood, he slashed ancient symbols into the water itself, forging a blood domination talisman. Then, before the beast could break free, slam! He smacked the talisman right onto its head. Now came the hard part. Forming the contract wasn't as simple as just sticking a magic sticker on a sea demon. It was a battle of spiritual will. The beast fought back. The moment the contract activated, a crushing force slammed into Liang's mind, like a 1,000-ton weight trying to crush his very soul. His vision darkened, his body stiffened. For a moment it felt like the beast's will was too much, that its raw primal power would devour him whole. But unfortunately for it, Liang wasn't just one soul. He had lived twice. He had died before. And he wasn't doing that again. With a guttural growl, he pushed back. His soul energy surged, slamming into the beast's mind with twice the force. The creature roared, thrashing wildly, before finally it stopped. A beat of silence, then a pulse. The contract was sealed, and just like that, the beast was his. Liang shot out of the water like a man who had just escaped the world's worst baptism. He gasped, gulping down glorious oxygen as his chest heaved. Holy hell, he was alive! And not just alive, he had won. The beast followed him up, its massive form looming over the lake, but now it wasn't attacking. Its eyes had changed, no longer filled with primal hunger. Instead, there was reverence, submission. This absolute unit of a sea monster, his. Still, there was just one problem. He couldn't exactly waltz into the village with a big-ass water demon at his side. That would be like showing up to a PTA meeting with a flamethrower. So, through their new spiritual link, he ordered the beast to stay hidden. And like an obedient puppy, well, a puppy the size of a house with more teeth than morals, it obeyed, retreating into the depths. Liang sighed. Time to go home. Meanwhile, back in the village, the old bastard who threw Liang in as bait had already moved on. Did he feel guilty? Remorseful? Even a little bad about, attempted murder? No. The geezer swaggered into the village, dragging his crew and Steward Jung along. Not to mourn Liang, of course. No. He was here for his father's fortune. Because in his rat-infested mind, this was compensation for the mission going south. Jiang was dead. The plan failed. Somebody had to pay for it. And if that somebody was a dead kid's inheritance, well, that just made things easier. So, with all the subtlety of a brick through a window, they kicked in the door to Liang's house, expecting an empty room. Instead, they got Liang, standing there, very much alive. For a long moment, nobody said anything. The entire group just stared. Liang raised an eyebrow. Sup? The old geezer's jaw dropped. Steward Jung. Oh, his entire face twisted in rage. Because this idiot, this absolute clown, had just wasted their time, but of course, instead of admitting fault, the bastard doubled down. Oh, how could he have survived unless he was working with the beast? And just like that, the script flipped. Liang wasn't just a survivor anymore. Now he was a traitor, a monster, the one who controlled the water beast, the one responsible for Zhang's death, which was, of course, complete and utter bullshit. Of all the accusations that could have been thrown at him, this one took the cake. Liang had been called a lot of things in his life. A freak, a curse, a walking, talking bad luck charm. It wasn't new. Back in his previous life, being an orphan meant that society looked at him like he carried the plague. Oh, don't go near him, he might steal your wallet. Or worse, your happiness, no matter what he did. The stigma never left. But one thing about Liang, he didn't roll over and take shit from anyone. Especially not from some toothless, two-faced geezer who looked like a dried-up turnip left out in the sun too long. This bastard was already missing a tooth, so Liang, being the charitable soul that he was, decided to help him add a few more to the count. So, with all the righteous fury of a man who had had enough, he tackled the old bastard with the force of a meteorite. The geezer went stumbling, arms flailing, a strangled yelp escaping his mouth. But Liang wasn't done. His eyes locked onto the nearest basin of water. They wanted him to be a monster so bad? Fine. He'd show them a real one. Water surged up his arm, twisting and coiling like a serpent, ready to strike. His anger sharpened his focus, and for a brief, dangerous moment, he was ready to drown every single one of them. Screw it. They wanted fear. He'd give them something to fear. But just as he was about to unleash hell, "Stop!" A voice cut through the chaos. Liang's head snapped toward the source, and there, rushing into the scene, was his childhood friend. Right beside the village chief. The old man's presence immediately changed everything. Because unlike Steward Jeng, who was nothing more than a glorified lapdog, the chief had actual power, real dynastic authority. And not even Steward Jeng was stupid enough to defy him. The bastard gritted his teeth, his face twisting into something that would have made a demon jealous, but he had no choice but to back off. Before leaving, though, he shot the chief a venomous glare, spitting out one last threat. "Master Zhao will hear of this." Liang almost laughed. Oh no, Master Zhao. A man who probably spent more time admiring his reflection than actually doing anything important. The chief? Completely unfazed. Hell, even Zhao would bow to him if it came down to it. With nothing else left to do, they all turned and left. But Liang knew better. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Situations like this would keep happening, again and again. And unless he wanted to be on the receiving end of more baseless bullshit and attempted murders, he needed to get stronger. Fast. Later that night, as he mulled over his next move, Liang noticed something odd. His water essence was increasing. First, he wasn't sure why, but then it clicked. His newly tamed crocodile had something to do with it. Intrigued, he waited for nightfall before heading back to the lake. Once there, he activated his spirit link. And when the beast finally surfaced, it was bite-sized. Liang blinked, stared, then blinked again. What the hell? The massive, terrifying, soul-crushing sea monster from earlier was now small enough to fit in his arms. He was about to start asking questions when the system chimed in. Due to being subdued, contracted beasts can adjust their body size at will to manage energy consumption. Okay, that actually made sense. But he wasn't here to admire his pet's new party trick. He needed to know where this water essence was coming from. So he issued a command, "Show me." Immediately, the tiny croc dove in. Liang followed. Through the murky depths, weaving past schools of fish and jagged underwater rocks, the beast led him toward a hidden underwater cave. The moment he stepped inside, his breath caught in his throat. The cave glowed. Countless legendary spirit plants sprawled across the cave floor, faintly pulsing with rich, spiritual energy. Liang reached out, fingers brushing against one of the glowing plants. Ding! A system prompt popped up. Spirit plant detected. Would you like to absorb? Liang grinned. Oh, hell yes. This was a loot drop he wasn't about to pass up. Spirit plants like these were insanely valuable. They absorbed extraordinary energies over time, making them crucial for cultivation. Rumor had it that in Zhao Manor's backyard, there was a frozen pond where special vines grew at the bottom. Vines so rare and powerful that Master Zhao used them to lure cultivators into servitude. That's how precious these things were. And yet, here he was, standing in a cave full of them. And if he absorbed them, his water essence would skyrocket, exactly what he needed. Without wasting a single second, Liang got to work. He gathered everything he could, every glowing, spirit-infused, energy-packed plant in sight. He briefly considered asking his crocodile minion to help, but when he glanced over, the little bastard was bloated from eating a few plants itself. It was floating belly up, looking like a stuffed dumpling, and Liang couldn't help but roll his eyes. Useless, he muttered. But to be fair, it earned the nap. The little guy had led him here, after all. So, while his pet recovered from its food coma, Liang went to town. One bite, boom. Water essence increased by 1. Another bite, bam. More water essence. And the best part, these plants were delicious, way too delicious, which made it alarmingly easy for him to gobble them up like a starving beast. One after another, he kept eating, absorbing as much water essence as possible. The more he had, the better his fusion with aquatic spirits, and the faster his pets could evolve. For a while, everything was great, until he looked down at himself. He had become a fat ass. A full stomach, worth it. 25 points of water essence gained, absolutely worth it. Immediately, he invested everything into his fusion with the water monkey bloodline, boosting it from 5% to 7.5%. A significant power boost. Now, if he ever ran into those toothless bastards from before, he'd wipe the floor with them. But that could wait, because he had a more pressing issue. Step 2. Make that money. He was broke, and winter was coming, which meant crocodiles would start hibernating soon, meaning he couldn't rely on them for hunting. meaning he needed to exploit them now before they became glorified frozen logs. So the plan was simple. Command Croc to catch as many fish as possible. Sell fish. Profit easy. Surprisingly, the merchants in this world weren't like the cutthroat hustlers from his previous life. They were way easier to convince. A few fancy words, a little water magic for showmanship, and boom! Financial struggles solved. With money in his pocket and food secured for winter, it was time for step 3. Step 3. Make that old geezer regret everything. Just as he was about to plot his revenge on the old bastard who tried to feed him to a lake monster. The geezer beat him to it. Apparently the old man was looking for him, and not to beg for his life. No, he wanted to apologize, and to prove his sincerity, he invited Liang to a meal. On his boat, just the two of them. Liang nearly burst out laughing. It was so blatantly obvious what was happening. But instead of calling him out, he played along. Because this was exactly what he wanted. A few hours before their scheduled friendly dinner, the old geezer was getting his ass beat. Steward Jung's men had pummeled him into the dirt. Why? Because he had failed. For the first time ever, Steward Jung had been embarrassed in front of so many people. And he wasn't about to let that slide. But killing the old man now, that would be a waste. Master Zhao still had use for him. See, Zhao needed a very special material to refine his pills. An orphan. A true orphan. And guess who just so happened to fit that criteria? Liang. So the old bastard had one last chance to redeem himself, abduct Liang or die trying. To make sure he didn't screw up this time, he even accepted a power-boosting seal, something that would push his strength beyond its limits for this one mission. Now, with delusions of grandeur and the promise of immortality dangling in front of him, the old geezer felt unstoppable. His plan? Something brilliant, genius, absolutely foolproof. Poison. Lace the soup with a special toxin, not to kill, just to weaken Liang enough that he couldn't scream or resist. Then, kidnap him and deliver him gift-wrapped to Master Zhao. Flawless. Unfortunately for him, Liang had zero patience for that. The moment the old man set the soup down, Liang didn't even pretend to hesitate. Instead of taking a sip, he chose violence. With a flick of his hand, a stream of water shot forward. Before the old geezer could react, it wrapped around his head like a vice grip. He struggled, clawed at the invisible force crushing his face. But it was useless. He couldn't even scream. And then, everything went black. When the old geezer woke up, it was nighttime. His body ached, his mind spun. And the worst part, he was tied up. Panic set in immediately. He thrashed, demanding answers. "What are you planning to do?" he barked as if he was innocent. Liang just grinned, holding up a very familiar piece of paper. "Oh, I don't know," he said, tilting his head mockingly. "Maybe I'll ask Master Zhao what he thinks about you selling me out." The old man froze. That paper, it was proof. Bribery, betrayal, everything laid out in his own handwriting. The location? The same lake where they had first encountered the water beast. Except this time, the beast belonged to Liang. And tonight, it was hungry. Liang leaned in, voice dripping with dark amusement. "You wanted me to be a monster so badly." The old man started sweating. "Then I'll give you exactly what you wanted." Ah, the classic "I never wanted this" a moment. The old man suddenly had an epiphany. He didn't want Liang to be a monster. No, of course not. What a silly misunderstanding. He was just following orders. He was totally innocent. Best friends forever, right? Liang, bless his soul, played along, nodding with the patience of a saint as the geezer spilled everything. Zhao Mansion wanted orphans. Why? Because they weren't people. They were materials. For what? A celestial pill. What does it do? Immortality. Yeah, human sacrifice for eternal life. Classic. And just as the words left the old man's mouth, he realized how screwed he was. So, like any good villain-turned-victim, he flipped the script. You see, I was forced. I had no choice. I'm the real victim here. Adorable. But Liang wasn't buying it. Forced or not, the old bastard knew too much, and that sealed his fate. But this posed a bigger problem. The Zhao family wouldn't just let this slide. The moment the geezer vanished off the face of the earth, they'd come sniffing around like rabid dogs. Which meant Liang needed a way out. Step 2. Time to get stronger before he gets hunted like a rabbit. His best bet? Become a cultivator. Fast. And the quickest way to do that? Join a martial arts school. In Pingyang City, there were 3 schools, but only one mattered. Yang School. The school's master was a legend. The man could shatter gold and stone with his bare hands. Reputation alone kept Yang School at the top, and if Liang became one of them, then the Zhao family wouldn't dare touch him. Because if a Yang School disciple disappeared mysteriously, the school wouldn't just sit back and take it. Perfect. Only one problem. The entrance fee was 8 taels of silver. And right now, Liang had 2. Time to make some money. Diving into the lake, he went back to hunting. His swimming had improved, mostly thanks to his pet croc, who doubled as his sparring partner. Through sheer stubbornness and repeated near drownings, he had developed a technique: compress water beneath his feet, release it all at once for a speed boost. Did it work? Yes. Did it drain his energy faster than a leech on steroids? Also, yes. So for now, he could only use it in short bursts, but just when he thought it'd be a normal hunting trip. A peculiar fish appeared, glowing red. Definitely a spiritual fish. In this world, some creatures mutated under special energy, evolving into absolute nightmares. Examples: giant scorpion beetles, 2-headed razor-tooth sharks, iron fin whales, and right now, Liang was staring at 2 spiritual fish. An opportunity he couldn't afford to pass up. Croc, lock in. His pet obliged, shifting back to its original massive size, gunning for one of the fish. Liang chased the other, using his new speed boost technique. He easily caught up and, with a little water manipulation, created a bubble around it. Boom. Captured. Just as he was about to celebrate. Something bigger stirred in the depths, and before he could even turn around, wham! A massive water beast wrapped around him and slammed him into the lake bed. Ow! He locked eyes with his attacker. Oh great, a 6-barbed fish. A man-eater. Because of course, the beast wasn't just massive, it had tricks too. The damn thing started forming a water orb, ready to launch it straight at him. Too bad for it. Liang was faster. Before the orb could fully charge, he shattered it like cheap glass. The fish? Pissed. It lashed out with its tail. Enter Croc, stage left. The croc intercepted like a champion, slamming into the beast mid-attack. And then it hit the bastard with a primary Lotus special. Spinning mid-water, it slammed the 6-barbed fish into the ground, leaving it wide open for Liang. With zero hesitation, he activated his blood talisman. One problem: this thing had way stronger spiritual energy than his croc. And the second he tried to capture it, his system crashed. Warnings flashed, massive mental overload. He started spazzing out like a broken puppet. But this was now or never. If he backed down, they were fish food, so he persisted. Through the blinding pain, the mental strain, the pure agony, his will to live won. And in the end, he subdued it. Just like the croc, the beast instantly shrunk down to conserve energy. Now, instead of a giant, terrifying monster, he had a chunky, pudgy little fish, since it could evolve into a tigerhead whale, and it was already round and fat. He named it Chunky. With the battle over, he checked on his loot. Sure enough, his croc had caught the other spirit fish. Good boy. He gave it a well-deserved head pat. To celebrate, he cooked some fish, and as an experiment, he cooked a smaller spirit fish to see if he could extract some water essence from it. Result? 18 points. Holy hell, if a small one gave that much, a bigger one should give triple, which meant he could definitely break past a 10% fusion rate. But, as tempting as it was, he needed money more than power right now, so for now, he held back. Time to get that cash first. Liang had one goal today: sell his spiritual fish and walk out richer than when he walked in. Simple, right? Wrong. The moment he stepped into Yixing Market, he was hit with the overwhelming stench of sweaty bodies, cheap incense, and desperation. The place was packed. And not just your usual, oh, it's a busy day kind of packed. No, this was, are they giving away free gold? Kind of packed. Liang frowned. What the hell was going on? Then he saw him, standing in the middle of the crowd, holding up a spiritual fish like it was a damn royal treasure, was none other than a member of the Chen family. Ah, that explained the crowd. Apparently, young Master Chen had come to show off. Instead of feeling intimidated, Liang felt energized. This was perfect. If people were already gathered here, he wouldn't have to waste time hunting for customers. So, with the confidence of a man who knew he had something better, Liang pushed his way through the crowd until he was right at the front. And then, he did what any master manipulator would do. He showed off his own fish. Limelight? Check. Dramatic reveal? Double check. The reaction, not what he expected. Instead of awe, there was confusion. Instead of admiration, there was outright rejection. People were staring at his fish like he had just pulled out a rotting shoe. Is that even a spirit fish? Someone sneered. That's just an ugly, deformed creature, another cackled. The floodgates opened, the crowd exploded into laughter. Even young Master Chen, standing smug and superior, gave him a look that screamed pathetic. Liang's eye twitched. This was not how this was supposed to go. Before Liang could decide whether to commit mass violence or keep smiling, a shift in the atmosphere caught his attention. The crowd suddenly went silent because someone important had arrived, and that someone was Hoki, a respected cultivator from the Yang martial arts school. This guy wasn't just any martial artist, he was the real deal. And when he walked forward, his gaze naturally landed on Chen's fish. Without hesitation, Hoki asked for the price. Chen, of course, knew better than to blurt out a number in front of a high-status cultivator, so he played it smart. Oh, esteemed master, whatever price you deem fair. Hoki casually offered 3 tiles. 3 whole tails. Chen almost passed out on the spot, because that was way more than he ever expected. And just as he was about to seal the deal, Liang, grinning like the little menace he was, whipped out his own fish. The crowd, still high off their mockery, instantly perked up. They were ready for another round of entertainment. Oh, this is going to be good. He's really about to embarrass himself twice in one day. Even Chen was smirking harder. Except that's not what happened. Because the moment Hoki's eyes landed on Liang's fish, everything changed. The man lit up like a kid who just found out his birthday gift was a dragon. That's a horned pomfret, a rare, highly valuable spirit fish, and before anyone could even process what was happening, Hoki immediately offered 6 tails. Silence. Not mockery, not insults. Just stunned, brain-breaking silence. Because 6 tails was more than what most families saved in generations. And all those people who had just been laughing at him. Yeah, they weren't laughing anymore. Even Chen, the golden boy, stood completely speechless. His precious superior spirit fish instantly overshadowed by Liang. The very same Liang they had just been mocking into the dirt. Oh, the irony. And of course, where there's money, there's envy. Some guy in the crowd even had the nerve to throw out a veiled threat disguised as a joke. "You better be careful walking home with that much money, kid." Liang didn't even blink. He cashed in, took the money, and walked off like he didn't have a single care in the world. Before handing over the fish, Liang saw an opportunity. If his fish was worth double the price of Chen's, he wanted to know why. So, with perfectly feigned innocence, he asked Hoki, "Esteemed master, what makes the horned pomplet so special?" Lucky for him, Hoki was in a damn good mood and decided to explain. Turned out, this fish was a key ingredient in special pills that helped cultivators break through the blood flow barrier. A crucial stage in martial cultivation, and as fate would have it, Hoki was at that exact bottleneck, which made this fish insanely valuable to him. And with that one revelation, Liang's entire perspective changed. Selling fish wasn't just about money, it was about cultivation. This was huge. Grateful for the insight, Liang sincerely thanked Hoki, because this knowledge would serve him far better than any tiles ever could. Liang sat in a grimy alley, hunched over his hard-earned silver, like a miser in a bad play. 9 taels of silver, not a fortune, but enough to make some people reconsider their morals. He flicked a coin between his fingers, basking in the glow of his financial superiority when, "Oi, rich man," a familiar voice. Liang didn't even need to turn around. Only one person had the audacity to sneak up on him without fearing a swift kick to the shin. Libo, his childhood friend, part-time pain in the ass, and full-time freeloader. The guy grinned like a proud mother, arms crossed. "Congratulations, O mighty fishmonger, for bringing honor to our humble village." Liang smirked. Damn right. But since the moment was conveniently perfect, he also took a second to genuinely thank Libo for bringing the village chief when he needed help. And of course, because Libo was, in fact, Libo, "If you're that grateful, you could just hand over those 6 tiles of silver, as a sign of appreciation." Liang, without hesitation, ignored him so hard it was almost physically painful. Instead, he went straight to the point. "How much does it actually cost to enroll in the Yang martial arts school?" This question had an unexpected effect. Libo practically vibrated with excitement. "Wait, you're joining too?" Turns out his father was just about to send him there. The school had 3 tiers of fees, 7 tiles for basic enrollment. No food, no bed, just vibes. 10 taels for enrollment plus meals plus lodging, for those who liked not dying of hunger. 20 tiles for the full deluxe package, which included medicinal baths for people who liked suffering in style. It was pricier than the other 2 sects, but it was also the most prestigious. And let's be real, prestige was half the battle in cultivation. Liang grinned. He could afford this. Between today's haul and his past earnings, he had 9 taels total. Without a second thought, he told Libo, "We're signing up tomorrow." Libo predictably lost his mind. For once, timing had actually worked out in their favor. Everything felt perfect, so of course the universe decided to ruin it. The moment of celebration was brutally cut short. Liang's passive ability, a lovely little gift that let him eavesdrop on conversations near water sources, suddenly activated, and what he heard sent ice through his veins. Because the voices were coming from the Jiao Manor, and their topic of discussion, him, tracking him, which was, to put it lightly, an absolute nightmare. Liang's stomach dropped. This wasn't just some drunken gossip. They were actively looking for him, which meant he needed to power up. Fast. Night fell and Liang wasted no time. He went straight to the lake where his pet beast, Chunky, a name chosen with love and 0 creativity, had miraculously caught another spirit fish. Liang stared at it, his brain working in overdrive. He could sell it, or he could eat it. Because what kind of fool gains power by selling their opportunities? But he wasn't some savage beast gnawing on raw flesh. He had class, so he cooked it properly, seasoned it, and made it into a fine, rich soup. And the result? Incredible. The flavors blended so perfectly it was almost criminal. His pets practically drooling. Their eyes locked on the meal like it was their one true purpose in life. Fortunately, Liang was a generous king. He made sure everyone got their share, and as it turned out, this was the best decision he had made all day. The moment he finished eating, the power hit him hard. 24 water essence, far greater than the horned pomplet, which had only given 18. Fusion level, almost 12%. And suddenly, Liang felt like punching something, not out of anger, just to see how much stronger he'd become. And then there was another discovery. His control over water had grown. A lot. So much that if he wanted to, he could probably levitate Chunky into the air like some aquatic balloon. Which, honestly, was a terrifying and hilarious mental image. But then, he noticed something even weirder. His pet's evolution requirement had dropped. Not by a small margin. It had gone from 800 to 779. And the only thing he had done, fed them. That was insane. This realization hit him like a brick to the face. Because if that was true, then the water cauldron he'd been using was way more valuable than he ever thought. This wasn't just a tool, it was something far greater. And now he needed to know why. Was it a creation of nature? Or something far more sinister? The answer, he suspected, lay within the cauldron itself. Liang summoned the water cauldron, pulling it close for a better look. And, well, this thing had some personality. One side bore the carving of a water monkey, which was already concerning because anything with water and monkey in the same sentence usually spelled disaster. But then, on the other side, a winged dragon. And it didn't stop there. There was also a human-headed snake, which screamed bad news, and a mysterious hooded figure, which screamed worse news. At this point, the cauldron wasn't just a cooking pot, it was practically a horror novel in artifact form. Could this be a clue to its true nature? Maybe. But did Liang want to start jumping to conclusions? Absolutely not. Because he knew exactly how that would go. Step 1. Think too hard. Step 2. Convince himself he's the chosen one. Step 3. End up fighting something way out of his league. Yeah, no thanks. He had bigger things to worry about, like the fact that he was about to enroll in a martial arts school tomorrow. And that he could actually control. The next morning, Liang and Libo set off toward Young Martial Arts School. And within 5 minutes, Liang was already regretting his life choices. Libo was practically bouncing in his seat, grinning like a kid who had just discovered sugar for the first time, way too excited for a simple carriage ride. Meanwhile, Liang was just sitting there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if it was too late to just walk alone. But eventually, the rocky mountain paths led them to Pingyang City, a bustling trade hub filled with, vendors shouting about their best prices, liars. The aroma of freshly grilled skewers. Tempting. And enough people to make pickpocketing a profitable business, concerning. Naturally, the two of them got completely sidetracked, because how could they not? They tried out street food that put their village meals to shame. They browsed handcrafted art that was clearly made by people with too much free time. And then they stumbled upon something odd. A bizarre strength show featuring 1. A man lying flat on a stack of bricks. 2. Another man with muscles the size of a small cow. 3. A hammer. You can guess where this was going. Liang and Libo watched in morbid fascination as the buff dude brought the hammer down. Bam! Bricks shattered. The man underneath, still breathing. Well, that's disturbing, Liang muttered. Libo, meanwhile, was too busy laughing. I don't know, I kinda wanna try it. Liang gave him a deeply disappointed stare. I'm not bailing you out if you die. While Liang and Libo were busy being tourists, a group of less than intelligent men had been tracking them. Specifically, tracking Liang Silver. Their original plan was simple: rob him last night. But then they overheard something interesting. He wasn't traveling alone. 2 students, 2 bags of money, and just like that, their greed tripled. Some of them hesitated, because let's be real, robbing a future martial artist sounded like a fantastic way to get your ribs shattered. But their leader? Smug, overconfident, and clearly lacking brain cells. He grinned, waving off their concerns. Don't worry. If things go wrong, I'll handle the bodies. Yes, murder, the best way to avoid consequences. And as if they weren't cartoonishly villainous enough, they had already picked the perfect spot. A shortcut to the school, barely traveled, no witnesses. And sure enough, just as planned, Liang and Libo showed up. The bandits stepped out, smirking like they'd already won. Hand over the money, one sneered, or end up buried by the roadside. And they laughed, like this was some funny little joke. Unfortunately for them, Liang wasn't laughing. Instead, he smiled, a different kind of smile. A sharp, devious, oh, you poor, dumb bastards kind of smile. Because if they were so eager to bury someone by the roadside, then he'd gladly grant them their wish. The first guy lunged at Liang with a punch. Big mistake, because before his fist could even dream of landing, Liang's reflexes kicked in like divine punishment. Bam! Liang's fist met the guy's face with the force of a sledgehammer. The dude practically levitated for half a second before crumpling like bad laundry. Another bandit charged in, shouting, "You brat!" Oh, original. Liang slammed an elbow into his nose so hard that the guy probably saw his ancestors. Then, for good measure, he grabbed him by the hair and used him as a battering ram, right into another unfortunate soul. The third guy, terrified, and rightly so, because before he could even react, wham, Liang's fist crashed into his face and drove him straight into the ground, and not just a little. The ground actually shattered, like a freaking mini earthquake just for him. Libo, absolutely losing his mind, his jaw hung open as he stared at the aftermath. The entire fight had ended in just 9 moves. So fast, Libo gasped. Meanwhile, Liang was standing there, staring at his own hand like he just discovered it could print money. Huh. He clenched and unclenched his fist. Didn't expect to be that strong, but given his recent improvements... As expected, my physical abilities have improved significantly. Libo, still sweating, asked, "Dude, when did you become this strong? Do you even need a master at this point?" Liang, also sweating but for a very different reason, let out a nervous laugh. Ha ha. Maybe I'm just a genius. Translation: he had no clue how to explain this, and the last thing he needed was Libo playing detective. So, time for a strategic distraction. Let's go. If we don't hurry, we'll miss admissions. Libo narrowed his eyes, suspicious. The scene shifted to Young Martial Arts Academy. At the entrance, a man greeted them. "I am Xiang Chongsong. You may call me Senior Brother Xiang." "Yeah, loud guy." "Got it." Liang and Libo greeted him in return. Xiang motioned for them to follow. "Please follow me. I will take you to another instructor for your test and explain the details about warriors." Then he pointed to someone nearby. "This is Senior Brother Hoki. He is a direct disciple of Master Yang and will be teaching you." Liang blinked. Wait, that guy looked familiar. His brain clicked. That's the warrior from the market? Hoki also looked over and recognized him instantly. "Oh, it's you." Xiang, ever the energetic host, grinned. "What a coincidence. Senior Brother Hoki, you know these 2 junior brothers." Hoki nodded. The bullhorn pomfret I used for my breakthrough was bought from this little brother's stall. Xiang clapped his hands together. That's great, you two will train under senior brother Hoki. Tonight you are allowed to stay at the martial hall. Liang and Libo both greeted Hoki properly. Hoki nodded approvingly. Follow me, junior brothers. Next, I will test your innate bone structure. Liang raised an eyebrow. Bone structure? Hoki smiled in that mildly ominous, this will probably hurt way. Don't be too nervous, it's just to determine which path suits you best. Liang raised an eyebrow, curiosity getting the best of him. We still don't fully understand what martial arts cultivation paths entail. Could senior brother explain the principles to us? Hoki, ever the wise senior, gazed upward like a sage about to drop divine wisdom. Principles. Then, with the gravity of a man explaining taxes to a teenager, he continued. The foundation of martial arts is divided into 4 stages: skin, flesh, bone, and blood. Liang and Libo nodded. So far, so good. Skin barrier. Your skin toughens like oxhide, making it resilient and hard to break, greatly enhancing defense. Translation. You can take a beating and still look pretty. Flesh barrier, muscle strength surges. Lifting a grown man with one hand becomes effortless. Translation. Goodbye, manual labor. Bone barrier, you unleash power more recklessly, allowing feats like breaking stone and splitting monuments. Translation. Breaking stuff for fun is now a valid career choice. Blood barrier, an all-around enhancement, like embroidery on silk, making everything stronger. Translation. Congratulations. You are now a one-man army. At its core, it all comes down to a single word: refinement. Liang smirked. Yeah, that made sense. But for ordinary people, no matter how much they refine, there is always a limit. To break past this limit, 2 things are indispensable: technique and medicine. Liang and Libo exchanged glances before asking in unison. Technique and medicine? Hoki nodded, clearly pleased that they were paying attention. Exactly. Technique refers to martial skills. For example, Yang Martial Hall's 3 fist techniques. With a proper technique, a person gains the stairway to ascend. Liang's thoughts clicked into place. That must refer to cultivation techniques. Still, there was another piece missing. And what about medicine? Hoki grinned like a man about to introduce them to his favorite brand of performance enhancers. Techniques provide the path upward, but this path is steep and treacherous. To climb faster and more steadily, one needs a handrail, and that handrail is medicine. The bullhorn pomfret you sold, that's the medicine we need. Liang nearly burst out laughing. Perfect. With Zed's help, he could stockpile all the medicine he wanted. Hoki clapped a hand on their shoulders, his tone suddenly fatherly. No need to rush, junior brothers. The martial path is long. Focus on each step first. Liang, ever the grateful student, smiled. Thank you, senior brother. Then please assess our bone structure. Meanwhile, in the shadows of villainy, not far away, a small group of professional schemers was observing them. One of them, Hu Yancai, glanced at a smug-looking young man beside him. Third young master Zhao, is this the one you were talking about? Zhao Shuiyuan smirked, radiating rich kid energy. That's right. As long as you kick these 2 out of the martial hall, I can make sure your request is granted. Ah yes, the great Zhao family. A clan known for their vast wealth, deep connections, and a completely normal, definitely not sinister pursuit of immortality. Except, plot twist, it wasn't immortality pills they were making. Nope. The truth was far worse. Zhao Manor wasn't producing legendary elixirs to defy death itself. Instead, they were churning out pills for one very specific reason: to fix Zhao Shuiyuan's weak, frail, constantly on the verge of keeling over body. His older brother, Master Zhao, was desperate to keep the family name strong, but finding a fetal pill from someone of the same age as Zhao Shuiyuan was getting harder by the day. Enter Liang, same age, perfectly healthy, prime elixir material. The only problem, the brat had joined the Yang sect, which meant kidnapping him wasn't as easy as plucking a stray dog off the street. Master Zhao, ever the pragmatist, had more or less given up on the Idaiva bird. Unfortunately, Zhao Shuiyuan had overheard everything, and there was no way he was letting some orphan kid stand in his way. Instead of sitting around waiting for his body to betray him one final time, he made a decision. He was going to handle this personally, because once Liang was out of the picture, he'd finally break through his shackles and ascend to elixir aperture. Liang and Libo had just finished checking their bone structures, and let's just say Libo was not taking it well. Liang, top-tier bone structure. Libo, mid-high tier, which was totally unacceptable. There was no way Liang had better bones than him. Right? Right? Of course, deep down he knew the test wasn't rigged, but that didn't stop him from questioning his entire existence. For years he had assumed they were equals. Now it felt like he was just some side character in Liang's story. But this wasn't the time to get discouraged, so like a true warrior, he swallowed his pride and pressed on. With that settled, the two were about to head to the training grounds when fate decided to throw more drama their way. Chen Ji Cheng, a familiar face from the marketplace. For Liang, this was just a casual encounter. For Libo, this was a vendetta. The second they locked eyes, it was on. Tension crackled in the air like a storm about to explode, and within seconds the two were already on the verge of throwing punches. Which, of course, Liang Gong couldn't allow, because if these idiots actually started fighting now, they'd be in serious trouble. So, with the patience of a babysitter dealing with two toddlers on a sugar rush, Liang stepped in and shut it down. Once the tension cooled off, he turned to Chang. "Are you here to practice martial arts too?" As it turned out, yes. Chang had the same goal as Liang all along. He had been selling spirit fish to save enough money to enter the school, which was reassuring. The more people with the same determination, the better. Without hesitation, Liang invited him to join them. After all, Senior Hoki was already teaching at the training grounds, and they couldn't afford to miss this opportunity. They joined the other disciples for training, and within 5 minutes, they deeply regretted every life choice that had led them here. Their bodies ascending straight into the afterlife, their muscles screaming in betrayal, their limbs jelly, pure, useless jelly. By the time Senior Hoki finally called for a break, they were seconds away from collapsing, which would have been nice, except the training wasn't over yet. Instructor Lu was taking over in the afternoon, meaning they had one brief moment to recover before getting thrown right back into the meat grinder. At this point, Libo was seriously considering quitting, because, seriously, this was absolute torture. He was not built for this level of pain, which, of course, made Chang burst into laughter. "Weak-willed," he snorted. Libo glared. If he had the strength to punch him, he would. Before they could even catch their breath, trouble arrived. Young Kai and his lackeys. Because of course they did. These guys waltzed in like they owned the place, throwing insults left and right. And then came the worst part. "You want to stay in the sect? That'll be 100 coins. Yes, 100 coins. As a donation. Because apparently these clowns thought they were running a protection racket. Even Senior Hoki didn't treat them like this. Libo, immediately ready to throw hands. Did he have the skills to win? No. Did he care? Also no. He just wanted the satisfaction of punching at least one of these idiots in the face. Libo was 1 second away from throwing hands when Chang, the ever-so-level-headed one, stopped him. Not because he cared about Libo's safety, but because if they got into a fight here and now, they wouldn't just get their asses kicked. They'd drag Senior Hoki into trouble too. And if there was one person they really didn't want to piss off, it was Senior Hoki. Even Liang hesitated, which was saying something, He wasn't the type to back down from a fight, but there was just one problem. 3 cultivators, 1 Liang. The math wasn't mathing in his favor, and young Kai knew it. So, of course, he took this moment to boast at full volume, flexing about how he was on the verge of breaking through the skin barrier. Translation: he was dying to test his new strength, and what better way to do that than beating the absolute crap out of some newbies? This was not a fight they could win. If they were near a river, sure, water equals sign Liang's home turf. But here they were as doomed as a fish in a frying pan. Just when things were about to get real ugly, Senior Hoki returned, and oh boy was he not in the mood for this nonsense. In less than a minute, he shut down the confrontation and made sure young Kai and his lackeys got the punishment they deserved, which, naturally, only made young Kai hate them even more. Cue the empty threats, the glaring, the classic "this isn't over" villain line, which only made Hoki double down on their punishment. Because if these idiots were gonna act like trash, they were gonna get treated like trash. But just as things seemed to settle, Liang felt it. That creeping, uneasy sensation. His passive skill triggered. He didn't just hear something. He felt it. Someone nearby was talking about him, and not in a "wow, what a cool guy" kind of way. No, this was something worse. The tone in their voice, desperate, too desperate. Which meant one thing: they weren't giving up. Not even after he had joined the Yang sect. And when people this desperate kept coming after you, it only meant one thing: they weren't afraid to strike. And when they did, his friends might get caught in the crossfire. Liang didn't have time to hesitate. Without explaining much, he turned to the others and said, "I got something to take care of. Be back later." And then he bolted. His destination? The Lotus Pond, where he had the home field advantage, where there would be no witnesses. Because if these people really wanted to test him, he was going to make damn sure they regretted it. Libo and Cheng were on their way out when Libo finally said what had been nagging at him all day. Liang hasn't returned in a whole day. A normal person might have expressed concern, maybe suggested searching for him, but not Chang. No, Chang just shrugged and said, "The Emperor isn't worried, but the eunuchs are." Translation: why are you freaking out over nothing? Libo's eye twitched. "Are you looking for trouble?" Chang's expression darkened immediately. "Oh, you just need a beating." The tension was building. One more word and they'd be throwing hands in broad daylight, and then clap, clap, clap. The slow, deliberate sound of clapping. Both of them turned, and of course it was him, young Kai, the professional menace, clapping like he was the villain in a third-rate drama. With that shit-eating grin, he said, "Looks like heaven is smiling upon me today. Running into you 2 cowards again. Oh, great. Another day, another round of public humiliation." But then he smiled, a sinister smile, the kind that made it painfully obvious he was about to do something deeply, profoundly stupid. "This time," he sneered, "there's no senior brother Hoki to back you up." Libo and Chang froze. Then, in perfect synchronized panic, they both started sweating bullets and exclaimed, "It's you!" Yang Kai and his goons grinned like hyenas. Oh, they were thriving on this moment. The air was practically thick with smugness as Yang Kai cracked his knuckles and declared, "Watch me cripple you both." Yang Kai had been having the time of his life, throwing punches just for the fun of it. He wasn't just beating people up. No. He was expressing himself. And then, just when he thought his performance piece was over, he turned to Chang, cracked his knuckles, and demanded, "Where the hell is Liang?" Now, Chang wasn't about to sell out his friend. That just wasn't happening. So, instead of answering, he grabbed the nearest brick and swung for the fences. Crack! Direct hit, right to Yang Kai's ugly mug. Which would have been amazing, except this bastard didn't even flinch. If anything, he just looked pissed. And then, before Chang could even start feeling proud of himself, Yang Kai stomped his face straight into the dirt. hard, just to make sure he understood his place in the universe. But that still wasn't enough. Nope. Young Kai was feeling extra petty today. He knew that if he went too far, he'd definitely get punished. Again. But did that stop him? No, because the intrusive thoughts won. So, without hesitation, he signaled to his goons. "Keep watch at the gate. I'm about to handle business." The trio nodded, stepping aside, probably feeling like they were part of some high-stakes criminal operation and not just school bullies with inflated egos. But before they could even get comfortable, Lebo, bless his absolutely terrible decision-making skills, decided to retaliate. And listen, if your opponent is smiling at you while you charge at them, you should just turn around and go home. Yang Kai caught his arm, twisted it like a rusty doorknob, and then, bam, slammed him into the ground so hard the earth probably considered pressing charges. Pinned, trapped, absolutely done for, and just when it looked like Yang Kai was about to make things even worse, he shifted his focus back to Chang, the real target. The guy who had the audacity to slap him with a brick. And Yang Kai? Oh, he was feeling creative now. Beating him up? Too easy. No, no, no. He had other plans. This time he wasn't just going to throw punches. He wanted to see how well Chang could train with one less eye. Meanwhile, Liang? Oh, he was chilling. Gliding across the lake, enjoying the company of his lazy crocodile and his chunky fish, when suddenly something felt off. A deep, unsettling uneasiness. Like the universe was trying to tell him, hey, maybe you should turn around before you die. And the proof? His lazy Croc and Chunky, who were both strong as hell, were actually scared. Scared enough to send him a message. And if they were scared, then whatever freaked them out wasn't just some random beast. Nope, this was a true monster. Still, there was no running now. If danger was coming, he had to face it head on. So he pushed forward. And then he saw it. Or rather, he saw what it left behind. Destruction. Pure, absolute carnage. This thing was big. He needed to find it, fast. So, without wasting any time, he transformed his pets back to their cute sizes, because obviously looking adorable before battle was a power move. Then he activated Aqua Vision. With his upgraded fusion level, his perception expanded from 1 meter to 6, letting him capture details he could have never seen before. And then he found it. His expression immediately changed. Because this thing, oh, it wasn't just big. It was a giant crab, and not just any crab. A behemoth with massive claws, enormous appendages, and a body so large it could probably house a small family. Even if he merged both of his beasts together, they still wouldn't match its size. And judging by the sheer power radiating from it, this thing had definitely reached spirit beast level, which meant it had a brain. Still, it couldn't have been too strong. Otherwise, his lazy Croc and Chunky wouldn't have gotten away. But even so, defeating it wouldn't be easy. So, naturally, he considered retreating, because this wasn't part of the plan. But then again, uncertainty, accidents, danger, they had always been a part of his life. And honestly, the biggest moments of fate always came with risk, so screw it. He wasn't about to let some oversized seafood take over his pond. Without hesitation, he transformed his pets back to their full size, their energy radiating like a damn anime opening scene. And then, boom! They shot forward, straight toward the massive crab. But this thing, oh, it wasn't just standing there waiting to get hit. No. It raised one of its colossal claws, gripped a boulder, crushed it, and launched it like a barrage of mana-infused bullets. Each projectile exploded against the water, forcing Liang and his beasts to scatter before they got turned into fish food. Okay, new plan. Clearly, they had to cripple the crab's claws first, so Liang snapped his fingers at Lazy Croc, signaling him to do what crocs do best: bite things. With a deep growl, the beast launched itself at the crab's armored limb, massive fangs sinking in deep. And nothing, absolutely nothing. The damn shell was built different. Brute force? Not gonna cut it. Fine. Liang adjusted on the fly. Using his water manipulation, he suspended the crab's other claw in place, locking it mid-air. Now there was an opening. Enter Chunky. The fish dashed forward like an aquatic torpedo and chomped right down on one of the crab's beady little eyes, yanking it clean out. A victory, right? Wrong. Because instead of weakening the crab, this only made it violently unhinged. Now, the one-eyed nightmare went full beast mode, thrashing and flailing, destroying half of Liang's precious spirit plants in the process. And that pissed him off. But before he could even react, the crab decided it was time to throw hands. Claws. In a blur, the massive crustacean was suddenly right in front of him. Boom! Liang got rocked, launched, sent flying through the water like a rag doll getting punted across a football field. The impact hit different. His brain was screaming at him to black out and just accept defeat. But no, absolutely not. He was too pissed off for that. So, through sheer rage and spite, he forced himself to stay conscious. Staggered to his feet, glaring, panting, thinking. Brute force clearly wasn't the answer, so he analyzed the crab, searching for any weakness. And then he saw it. The abdomen. Even as it tanked multiple attacks elsewhere, the crab instinctively protected that one spot. That was it. That was the kill shot. Liang had to end this in one strike, so he did something insane. He compressed the surrounding water, forming a series of rings around his spear, each one boosting its acceleration like a torpedo on steroids. But the process was draining the hell out of him. By the time he formed 2 rings, blood was already dripping from his nose. His body was screaming at him to stop. Did he listen? Nope. This was do or die. And Liang, he doesn't lose. Summoning every last ounce of strength, he hurled his spear at the crab's exposed abdomen. The result? Perfect. The spear pierced clean through, impaling the monster from one side to the other. It twitched. It shuddered. Then it stopped moving. Liang, absolutely ecstatic. Victory secured. He did it. Except, turns out, his body didn't care about celebrating. Because the second his adrenaline ran out, he completely blacked out. When he woke up, he wasn't underwater anymore. For a second, pure confusion. Then he noticed Lazy Croc and Chunky nearby, looking smug as hell. Ah, his boys saved him, again. With a tired smirk, he reached out and patted them both, silently thanking them before, "Oh, great. My head is trying to kill me." Throbbing pain, sharp as hell. And then, something caught his eye. At first, he wasn't sure what he was looking at. And then it hit him. The giant crab, the one he just killed. And it was right there, brought up by his beasts. Bless them. Because this big-ass seafood platter was about to give him a ridiculous amount of water essence once he consumed it. And even better, spirit beasts always taste amazing. Just thinking about it made his mouth water. But then, hold up. Greg the Croc, yes, his croc was named Greg, deal with it, was pointing at something inside the crab's body. Liang took a closer look, and that's when he saw it. A clutch of crab eggs. For a second, Liang just stared, because damn, if he had known, he might have tried taming the damn thing instead of killing it. But now, that wasn't an option. However, the eggs were still here, which meant he still had a shot at raising one. Only problem? He couldn't just sit around waiting for them to hatch, and he wasn't about to play babysitter. Which left him one option. Force an evolution. Using his Blood Dominion talisman, he sealed one of the eggs and held his breath. Nothing happened. For a second he thought, great, I just wasted my energy on a dead egg. But then, twitch, crack, and then, boom, a tiny claw burst through the shell. Seconds later, the egg split wide open, and out popped the cutest little crab he had ever seen.